Hi, I'm April, and this is Payroll, Prosecco, and Pregnancy, my journey through running a business whilst being pregnant with twins. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss a video. Today, I wanted to talk to you about some of the changes I've made since being pregnant and being a boss. I've been watching videos from working mothers who are also pregnant, and whilst they share some really useful tips, I do think it's a little bit different when you're the boss, when you're at the top of the pyramid and you still have to steer the ship. I have 2 restaurants and a small team of 12 people, and already I've realized that I have to make many changes to adjust to these new circumstances. First, the idea of equality. Whilst we all strive for equality, I think that pregnancy is one of those things that truly divides men from women. And unfortunately, in the beginning of our pregnancy, we are not encouraged to tell people what we're going through. And therefore, they don't understand why our symptoms might be affecting our performance. I'm not exactly sure what the rule is in terms of when you should tell people about your pregnancy, but I think most people wait until their 12-week scan because they want to be reassured that there aren't any problems. Now, unfortunately, miscarriage is a possibility. And whilst the probability of a miscarriage decreases after 12 weeks, I think there's a more important issue about why women feel uncomfortable talking about miscarriages. They shouldn't be taboo. 1 in every 4 pregnancies result in a miscarriage. And I feel like the more that we talk about it as women is the more we feel comfortable about the possibility. And we shouldn't be blaming ourselves or feel any sort of shame or guilt. Having said that, when you decide to tell your team, your friends, your family is entirely up to you. I told my team shortly after my 12-week scan. I think I was able to keep it from them because we were in lockdown and therefore my symptoms didn't need to be explained. But if I hadn't have been in lockdown, if I was working throughout this period, I do think I would have told them before my scan, simply because I would need them to understand why I needed extra support. Because being pregnant is hard work. I feel like we all know that labor is a challenge and we gear ourselves up and prepare ourselves mentally for the day that comes that we expect to feel all this pain. However, I feel a bit blindsided. I had no idea what I was signing up for in terms of the process of pregnancy. I didn't appreciate that morning sickness was going to be all day. I didn't appreciate that I wouldn't even be able to keep water down, let alone meals. I didn't understand how pregnancy could make me feel tired, drained, moody, disoriented. I feel like sometimes I'm losing my mind and my memory, and all of these things affect my productivity at work. So if I had been at work, I would definitely have decided to tell my team regardless of the 12-week scan. But my team is a small team, so I think how much you tell really depends on the relationship that you have with your team. Ultimately, should I receive any bad news, I would also share this with them as well. Therefore, it's easy for me to share the good news regardless of when my first scan was or not. The fact is, because I'm pregnant, I need more hands on deck. I need more people to fill the holes that I'm used to filling myself. And that means that my salaries are going to increase. A part of the reason I've been able to run a profitable business is because I'm really keen about looking at the cost. I like to keep my costs as low as possible, which means that I never really have spare hands for the sake of it. My team know that we run a very streamlined service where we shouldn't be drowning, but there's a sweet spot. There's that spot where you feel like you have to work to keep your head above water, but you also know that you're going to be supported by the people around you. Now, hiring more people, especially after lockdown, with such uncertainty, we don't know what the business is going to look like next month or in the next 6 months. But the fact is, I had to bite the bullet and appreciate that I can no longer be all things to all people, and therefore I needed to make some additions to the team. I've since learned that the revenue will come. The fact is that whilst I spend less time on my feet doing practical things like prep, I can spend more time focusing on getting new customers and keeping our loyal customers happy. So my advice to you is just accept it. a part of running your own business means that you're probably used to fulfilling as many roles that needed to be filled. People ask me, what do I do on a day-to-day basis? And I always say, I do whatever the business requires. That means that some days I'm used to being head chef in the kitchen. Other days I'll jump behind the bar if they need an extra pair of hands, or you can easily see me, cleaning and being on the floor or cleaning the dishes. But the point is that now I can no longer do, my 16 to 22 hour days. I simply can't sustain that lifestyle. And therefore I have to get new people who can help my current team, but also because we still have the same aspirations. We still want to grow a viable business and do better. But the fact is we need more people. So I just have to get over it. Another thing about hiring staff is that I have been able to garner the respect of my team because they know that I'm the type of person who's gonna clean the shit out of the toilet with them. And I was concerned that new staff members might not get to see me on my grind. They might not get to see me where I'm working 7 days a week, all day, as much as possible, because I physically can't do that. And when I told my team about my pregnancy, I also asked them to take responsibility for maintaining the culture that I've worked really hard over the 5 years to create, where we all help each other. We don't have this idea of separate departments because I'm not willing to do another person's job. And it's really important to me that anyone who's joining our family understand that whilst they may not see me on my feet all the time anymore, that culture should still, persist. It should still be present, because the only way that the business is going to do well, especially in my absence, is if we're all on the same page. One of the biggest talking points I think that differs between working mums and boss mums is this idea of maternity leave. I have seen discussions on many forums. I've heard people talk about it, and it does make me giggle a little bit because I think it's a luxury to be able to ask someone or to have the discussion about how much maternity leave we're going to take and under what terms we're going to take that maternity leave. Because as the owner of your own business, unfortunately, we don't have anyone to ask. I think that it's one of those things where my jury is still out. I don't know up until which point I will stop working. I like to think that I will continue working, as long as possible, as long as I'm physically able to. In terms of when I would return to work, again, I feel like the idea of me stepping away from my business for an extended period of time is really unlikely. Not just because, my business means a lot to me, but whilst I'm having twins, I considered my restaurants my children before the twins came along. And the idea of, I hear some people talking about taking a whole year. The idea of not being connected with my business for a year just is unthinkable. I think that at the moment I'm taking each day at a time. I'm trying to learn as quickly as possible. I'm trying to adjust where adjustments need to be made. And very much in the same way, I feel like I'll know within myself when it's the right time to declare that I'm on maternity leave. But I also think in the same way that working mothers have the luxury of, speaking with someone and continuing to get paid a certain amount of money whilst they're on their maternity leave, I do appreciate that as a business owner, I get to decide, when I'm going to come back to work. I also get to decide, if I'm going to bring my children with me to work. So that in itself presents a certain amount of freedom that I do enjoy. But I think that, like most things in owning your own business, the freedom definitely comes at a cost. One of the biggest things I didn't expect was just the physical toll pregnancy takes on the body. And there are many days where I wake up and my brain and my body are just not in sync. They're not reading from the same book, let alone the same page. And I didn't expect that, particularly as someone who is used to being in control. Like most business people, I think we're used to having the answers, or at least being able to find the answers, having the opportunity to plan our days and set out exactly what we want to achieve for that day. I am the queen of to-do lists. I love a to-do list. I love them at the start of the week. I love them every day. And I like that feeling of just ticking off each task, that personal satisfaction that I get from feeling like I'm accomplished, I'm getting shit done. And with pregnancy, it kind of just throws a complete curveball, because there are days when I wake up and I feel so ill. My head is hurting, my stomach is hurting, I can't keep anything down, and I'm just drained, completely drained. I've had moments where I'm literally just curled in a fetal position crying from the pain. And on those days, I'm physically not able to achieve anything, let alone start ticking things off of a to-do list. And no amount of internal dialogue or like pep talks gets me out of that. And I'm learning to accept that this is just a part of the journey, that sometimes I have to learn to let go and appreciate that it's my body telling me that I need to just stay put. I need to stop doing whatever I thought I wanted to do because my body has other plans. And in a weird way, I can't get my head fully around the fact that there are humans growing inside of me. And maybe I needed this kind of unquietening thing that I'm calling pregnancy to force myself to stop, to teach me new things. And a part of that is just accepting. It's accepting the current state, it's accepting my circumstances. But again, going back to telling my team, because they know, at least I can say, you know what guys, today I'm gonna really need you to be there for me because I physically can't do what I intended to do. But as much as I know this, like cognitively, I know that there are days that are good days, there are days that are bad days, there are days where I can achieve things, there are days where I just need to just stop. It's still hard to connect the feeling with the thought sometimes, because there are times where I wake up and my brain wants to go, go, go because that's what I'm used to, but my body is physically just not able to do so. And I think I'm still in that phase of just listening to myself a little bit more, definitely where possible, whilst making changes. You know, I'm still drinking ginger tea all the time and eating every kind of ginger product under the sun when I feel ill. But there are also times where I just have to accept that today I'm not going to take over the world. With change comes compromise, and running a business, as we all know, is never lacking of compromises. And I feel like going through pregnancy is just yet another reminder of the things that we have to trade off. You know, I spoke earlier about hiring new staff, which means that the trade-off is that my salaries have increased. I feel like one of the things about getting, you know, more rest is the trade-off that I need to learn how to let things go. But I think ultimately we need to make these calculated decisions based on the outcome that we know that we need to achieve. We've established that going 122 hours a day is simply not sustainable. And so I think it's about stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and thinking the fact, you know, sometimes having a baby or babies to put before yourself is the wake-up call that we need to force ourselves to adjust, to make changes within our lifestyle. Because I've said long ago, you know, that I needed to find a better balance, that I needed to not work all the time because I've burnt out. I've burnt out before, and I'm sure I'd probably be working myself towards burnout again. But the fact is that there's something about realizing that there's a bigger like purpose, right? Like having children is a bigger purpose, and we need to make sure that that journey is as smooth sailing as possible. And what it means is that I'm making changes that I probably should have made ages ago, but I never had a good enough reason to. And everyone's changes will be different. What you need to suit your lifestyle and to keep your business still viable, still prosperous, will be different to mine. But I think some of the principles stay the same. I think for most business owners, we do a lot because we have to, particularly independent business owners with smaller teams. We're forced to pick up slack where others might not. And this journey of pregnancy kind of puts a halt to some of that and really makes us think how we're going to work smarter and not harder. I've learned everything I know about being a boss, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur from my dad. I grew up seeing him in business, and for me, that meant seeing my dad work extremely hard every single day, including Christmas Day. And once I got old enough to understand what he was doing and to reap the benefits of all of his hard work, it filled me with great pride. And he is the reason why I'm on this journey of entrepreneurship at all, because of his great example. But I think pregnancy, again, going back to, it's different for men and women. And pregnancy has definitely forced me to change my ways of leadership. For me, leading, it means that you lead by example. It means that you graft. It means that you don't ask anyone to do what you would not be willing to do yourself. And whilst I still believe very much in those same principles, the fact is my circumstances have changed. I've had to learn to delegate a lot more and also probably better. I've had to give clearer instructions. I've had to give instructions to different people to do different things. So whereas before I might think, well, one person should be able to manage this task, I'm now thinking more about what is the best way to get the result that I want. Forget how many people it takes, but how can I go about setting up the scene so that the desired result is the one that I get. Delegating for me is hard. Again, it goes a little bit back to that control factor. I have to accept that people do things differently. People don't necessarily do things exactly the way in which I want them to do it or the way in which I would do it. But someone told me recently that getting it done is better than perfect. And we all know that perfection is a false ideal anyway. So particularly when we're in hospitality and we're in that service and it's quick, it's fast moving, the customers are present, you don't necessarily have time to completely analyze and overanalyze before you take action. It's important that sometimes the job just gets done. Forget what we thought perfection looked like in those circumstances. But as long as the job gets done and everyone involved is happy, what more could we really ask for? But along with delegation is trust. It is trusting people to do the job that they've been asked to do. It's also communicating with them should it not be done in that way, that you don't simply write them off, but you take the time to sit with them and communicate so that everyone's on the same page, that they understand the new expectation of them, and that they are given the tools to meet those expectations. I think trust is a difficult one, but it is extremely necessary, because in order for me to step away from the business physically, it means that I need to trust that my team are going to do what it takes to get the job done. For you, it might be your office, it might be a store, it might be a bar. But the fact is that regardless of the type of pregnancy, regardless of the stage of your pregnancy, I guarantee that there will be times where you need to step away. You simply can't be there. For me, I know that change has come quite quickly. Thank God for CCTV. But it does mean that I have had to step away from the business more than I'm used to. I think ultimately this whole experience is making me be a different kind of boss. It's making me think more strategically. It's also making me prioritize completely different things. For the first time, I'm now thinking about work-life balance without it just having comedic value. Because again, before, people would speak about these things and it was just a luxury that I didn't think I was in a position to really, consider. I was very much focused on work. Work was definitely the priority, and it was the thing that directed how my day would go. And don't get me wrong, I'm still working all the time, but it's a different kind of working. It's working in a different way that still gets the job done, that still keeps my team happy, that hopefully still keeps customers coming back, but ultimately has to be a healthier way of living. And I think before getting pregnant, to be honest, my health was never my number one priority. The job and productivity was always my number one priority. Again, someone told me recently that I need to remember that I'm the boss. And I think it's hard sometimes because I think the best leaders are humble. They are willing to, get their hands dirty with the team. And there isn't this separation on the job, even though there is a separation. And I think learning how to balance not feeling guilty, for example, for leaving work early, along with still showing your team that you appreciate them, still showing them that you are there for them, just in a different way, it's where it gets tricky. But as I said, this whole journey is a learning process. It's something that, I take day by day, and I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I'm starting to put my health first. I'm starting to make different kinds of decisions, and ultimately, I hope I'm creating a better environment for myself, for those around me, and yes, the two little poppers. So, until next time, remember, make sure you subscribe.